welcome to my market update. I know people have been itching to know what I think is going to happen next. So let's go straight to the tether dominance chart, which I love to refer to every time I do these market updates now, because we are in what I like to call the risk zone, right? And the risk zone is that there could be pullbacks into this area at any point in time and retests of the 1618 or a major push into the 1618 and extension over before pivoting. So we're at a level on the tether dominance where there is a potential to pivot at any point. So in terms of any entries being made, let me show you some recent entries that I made on Aave and why I made those entries and what type of exit I'm looking for on Aave. And that simply has to do with my indicator, right? In terms of my indicator and its effectiveness in uptrends, as you can see, it gives you some really nice entries for continuation in the uptrend. So should there be a continuation, there's a high probability that, any ping around these areas will give you a perfect entry. And at the moment, yesterday's entry was exactly after the bounce on this green line, which is the indicator. It's a projected Fibonacci pushed down, and it's custom. You can't get it anywhere. I made it myself. So there was that, and obviously there was one on Doge as well, which I opened near the lows here. And where I'm targeting these trades, these scalps, if you will, is at the range, the major range rebound zone, right? So with Doge, I do think when this final push does occur to this 1618, right? This final push into the, a shared resistance zone across a lot of major altcoins, and I'll cover Bitcoin in a second as well, but let's take it a step at a time. This 0618 area does have confluence with a supply region on the left shoulder here of Dogecoin, and the 065 does have, a resistance point on the left side here as well. So this, in addition to the tether dominance, if there is confluence throughout, that would be a perfect exit for this trade. And I think I'll be moving the break-even point for this Aave scalp to break even, right? Like so. So 2 risk-free trades. If I'm right about these, then that yields approximately, I think, like 25,000 US, which is nice. Not a bad result for a couple of days, should it play out. As you can see with Aave, I will remove this other fib here so we have a clear view of what's going on. I've actually taken the full range for Aave because this range doesn't take into account the supply region on the left shoulder here, right? If I were to take the full range here, I do think that Aave does have potentially a final push, only because there is still a bit of headroom here for tether dominance to do a retest before going back to 1. I'm not saying that we can't do that immediately. We most definitely can. However, there's still a bit of room here to take a little bit of risk. Well, at the moment they're sort of risk-free to ride out to the rebound zones respective to those tickers, and that would be a higher probability top, in my opinion, for those. So what am I trying to say here? Like in this region for longs, there would be just scalps and potential hedges being taken at this area without closing my earlier longs taken, down here, and I've added to those positions. So I'm pretty much, providing myself a bit of cushion by adding those trades on and potentially succeeding in those trades to ride out any potential downside, because despite the strike rate on this potential pullback, also I will be taking profits on Bitcoin as well are probably half the size of this. I know this entry looks super high now, but I actually entered down here and I've just been fiddling around with the trade itself. So there's, more realized gains on the side there. Let me have a look here. There's a decent amount of realized gains on Bitcoin. Sorry, it's clipped off a little bit here, but there's like $21,000 of realized gains on Bitcoin. So I'll get to Bitcoin in a second. Let's look at BitTensor as well and the potential top here. With BitTensor, you can see that it's gone to the shoulders on the left side here, and it's found resistance there. And in terms of the full range rebound zone, we've sort of breached the log scale RZ, but there is a bit of headroom here for the non-log RZ up top here. However, I'm not too confident at the moment with this zone here. Perhaps we do strike this 0.618 and we jerk back down and maybe all the way back down to this region before going back up, but we'll see. I'm not going to be touching this trade. I'm super unsure with what this volatility will entail, but I'm not going to be taking on new longer term positions at this point in time. Looking to de-risk if anything, but BitTensor, my main position, I'm going to be de-risking other assets in order to ride out the BitTensor wave in the coming few months. Well, it could be a tough few months up ahead after this major rally, right? Bitcoin. Let's have a look at the heat maps. At the moment, trading light has been down for a couple of weeks, so we have to make do with something called I'll leave my ref link down below. I think there's a free application anyways. It's called kiyotaka.ai. The actual good thing about Kiyotaka AI is that there is an aggregated heat map. So what that means is it combines the order book of multiple exchanges and projects that onto the chart. And as you can see, I'm gonna just adjust the heat a bit so we can have a look at the most critical areas. Is that you can see that there is a little bit of combined resistance here at $105,000 per Bitcoin. But the major level that I want to be eyeing off at the moment and sort of has, alignment with the possible gains with other altcoins, like breaking their current highs, is the absolute all-time high for Bitcoin at $110,000, which there is or close to 1,000 Bitcoin in resistance, right? And once we do that push, I will probably take off some size due to the risk that I see pivoting from the tether dominance. I'll take off half that size and watch what happens. And I'm happy with all the other trades that I have on. I'll take Aave off. Probably I'll take Doge off and half a Bitcoin off, but I'll keep Near and BitTensor running throughout. And should we get lower prices, I'll re-add those trades on. Something that I'm looking at the moment on potentially shorting is Pendle. Pendle is very close to its 0.65 line. I can see it, resisting 0.618 at the moment, but there's probably a good scalp here for that 0.65 region and a retest down to 0.55. But I'll be monitoring that as soon as we get like a sharp rejection. Potentially, I'm risking around 900 on that, and I'll move it to break even as soon as we get like a nice confirmation of a pivot there. But at the moment, to, I guess, emphasize once more, no new long-term trades are being taken. If you were bullish, those longer-term trades should have been taking much lower into this region. Anything that you enter now is, potentially going to get dumped on quite severely, right? Because what I'm looking at, as mentioned in previous videos, is once we hit 1618 for the tether dominance, there's a very, very strong probability, which is like 100% from every time I've, you know, back tested this, that we go back down here. But I could be wrong, right? You know, the fact that Bitcoin is making such a strong move towards its all-time high, it might continue pushing on and on and on. So that's why I'm keeping some exposure on, which, you know, hopefully won't get torn apart, meaning this won't go all the way back down to the lows, right? That's what I'm thinking at the moment. I don't know if there's anything left to add. Ethereum is also at the 0618/065 region, which would be a good level here to short Ethereum between 0618 and 065. I think like if it brushes at 065 area, likely to have a pullback during this pivot here. There's a lot of, you know, things that are aligning here, like market wide rebound zones, RZs, which is what I like to call the 0618 to 065. With that potential pivot, the only, you know, outlier here that I'm seeing is, you know, Bitcoin pushing near its all-time high, but it's not out of, I guess, character for Bitcoin to test near all-time highs and reject heavily. So let's not get too excited until, you know, there's weekly closures above the Bitcoin all-time high. Take some profit at the all-time, like near the all-time high. See what happens next. You should have had exposure already. If you've missed out and you see, you know, a rejection from the market at the 1618 area and the market starts tumbling quite heavily, wait until the tether dominance reaches 1 again. And then that will actually be a very, very, very opportune time to start adding size into the market for the final phase, final leg of the bull run. And this is how you would measure it. And the market should rise to the new 1618. And that is near the levels, the previous lows made by the tether dominance chart. Hopefully that was handy. I'm going to go have dinner now. So peace.